Hello everyone, and welcome to the Daily Nature Journal. My name is Alex Boone, and I've been keeping nature journals now since me and my partner moved to the beautiful coast of East Devon in 2016. In this channel, I'm going to be sharing my nature journaling with you for the whole of 2022. I'm going to be posting daily or close to daily videos of my nature journaling progress, videos about ink making, flower pressing, and aesthetic nature journaling. In this video, I'm going to be showing you through some of my nature journals from the past. From my very first nature journal that I started back in 2016, right through to my recent project, which I finished in June 2021. So let's get started and take a look through my nature journals. Let's start with this book. This is the first book that I started in October 2016, just after we'd moved. I like the country diary style of nature journaling. So I write about my day each day, and all of the nature-based things that I've observed. In this book I sort of did a lot more writing than drawing. And I was interested in acrylic painting at the time, so I did a lot of acrylic paintings which I then stuck into the book. That's not something that I continued doing. I also used the journal to help me practice my paintings as well. This is a practice for a painting that's now on my wall. And included little nature finds. So in January 2017, I was interested particularly in tree shapes, and ivy, and the shapes of the hills near my house. Ivy and catkins, and observations of snowdrops and teasels. I'm lucky enough to live nearby a nature reserve, which looks out over the mudflats of the Axe Valley estuary. I've always loved to document the coming of spring. So as spring came in 2017, I started to record the plants that I was seeing. Most days I wrote a little bit about the weather, but I always tried to make sure I went out as often as possible, even if I didn't write. As time went on, my interest in doing acrylic paintings started to fade, but I still was trying to put them in the book. What tended to happen was I'd do the sketch and then move on, and started to work a lot more in coloured pencils, which I'd used more than acrylics when I was growing up. I was essentially going back to my roots in coloured pencil. So when it comes to summer, I really see more beach scenes. The nature journal is essentially a record of the way that I spend my time, and since I spend a lot of time outdoors, it seems natural to me to keep a nature journal. So now we're coming out of summer into September. Lots more fungi in October, and the shapes of fallen leaves. Things washed up on the beach, and chestnuts fallen from the trees. Autumn leaves, and little sketches of the places that I've been nearby. This was my first attempt with preserving leaves, and you see that they've done quite well. I dried and pressed them and then coated them in PVA glue, and they're still doing well. This is 2018, so 4 years later. A few little observations and poems, things that come to my mind. Larch cones. Bit of collage. And recording the growth of bluebells from their first emergence on the lawn right through to when they're starting to flower properly. But by this end, I'd really started to change my mind about how I wanted to work. I was getting a bit behind, so I was still writing but not drawing so much, because I'd started work as an artist and was drawing outside of the nature journal a lot more. So you end up with a lot of gaps at this end of my journal, but I was still keeping the habit going, I was still writing. And I also had another book that I used outdoors during this period. So, lots of unfinished paintings, lots of quick sketches, but still keeping the habit going. So came into 2019 and the book started to run out. At this time I was doing a lot more walking outside and a lot more writing and sketching outside. So start to skip a little bit, a few little paintings here and there. But by May, June 2019, I was ready to move on to a new book and a new way of working. In 2019, I began a new project, working in this journal. And this was to be my project for the next 2 years. And eventually, working on this came to change my life. And I began, by the time I'd finished this book, I was starting to teach and share nature journaling more widely. So starting in the summer of 2019, working in coloured pencil and ink for the most part. And at this point I wanted to experiment more with composition and how I can lay out the pages and the images together. And this whole book became an experiment in different ways of composing images and text together. I'd always been interested in combining images of the small scale and the large scale. So landscapes, which quite often don't feature in some of the traditional nature journals, being incorporated with the smallest things. Bugs, small flowers, bees, butterflies and birds. And this is looking at nature when I was on holiday in Wales as well. So I started to take the nature journal with me around a lot more. And also started to work a lot more from composited images, images from lots and lots of photos and sketches and observations that I did in the field, brought together to make one continuous composite image to form borders and break up pages. Now in December 2019. My writing didn't change very much, still just observations of my day, where I'd been, what the weather was doing, what I'd seen. always with a strong focus on nature and the natural world outdoors. I started walking long distance quite a lot around this period, the beginning of 2020. So bringing together lots of images that are taken in these long walks. And to February 2020 now. All places now that are very, very close to home, and that I was seeing very, very regularly on a daily or weekly basis. And this page means quite a lot to me because it was at this time that the pandemic struck, and I was spending a lot more time at home or in the local woods, drawing together images of the coming of spring. So on this side it's this coming of spring in the local woods and what I saw there: wild garlic, primroses, orchids. And on this side it was what I could see in the garden at home. I also started to document the lockdown a lot more closely in my outdoor book, and some of that fed into this sort of more curated nature journal. So by this time I had formed quite the habit. I was walking regularly, getting outside, and even if I in the summer had spent the day down on the beach, I was still seeing things and finding things to write about. That's something that nature journaling does for you over the years. The knowledge of your local species becomes a lot richer. You see more because you're looking more. Now August 2020 on Dartmoor and in Pembrokeshire. Sometimes trying out something a little different with the page layout in this sort of checkerboard style between text and image. Sometimes using my more usual kind of border format that I enjoy. And now coming into the autumn of 2020, watching birds in November and the Remembrance Day at the War Memorial. And always working the same style, using the fine liner and the coloured pencil. If you want to find out more about how I do this, I describe it on my Patreon, which you can find linked in the video description and on the banner if you're using a desktop. If you're enjoying this video, please remember to hit the like button, and if you can subscribe, it will really help me get this to a wider audience. Now in February 2021, again continuing to create these composite borders, this time with birds as the main focus, and here the coming of spring into March 2021. Sometimes trying using the boxes to separate the words and the images, sometimes letting the page flow, and very often making a few observations next to my drawings of what I saw, sometimes its Latin name and where I saw it. This was a trip away to Dartington, kayaking on the river, and the very first time in my journal that I've ever included people. And then at Powderham Castle and the New Forest. And then at this point, I felt like after 2 years had passed, I kind of reached my stopping point for this particular journal, making it around 2 years of observations. And so I finished here with this beautiful image of my front garden in full summer flower. And what you're seeing there is only part of what nature journaling is really about. That's the culmination of a lot of time spent outdoors with a far less beautiful, far more, here we go, ad hoc kind of scribbly journal. And this is what actually forms most of the nature journaling work. Not so much to look at, but it's all that time spent outside, observing, remembering, making notes, asking questions, and learning. So this book is from 2019, I think. Making observations outdoors, doing long walks. After this book ran out, I went on to another and essentially continued where I left off. More writing outdoors, more notes, more sketches, and all of this supported the journal that you've just seen. There's pages and pages and pages of this. This sort of mapping, note-taking, questioning, sketching and writing. And throughout this period, I was also keeping a botanical journal. And in this journal, I came back year by year, putting images for the same time of year side by side. And I'll be keeping this journal alongside my other work for years to come. This one's a lot more scientific, whilst keeping my artistic style and using ink, in this case, rather than coloured pencil. And so from this use of ink has grown a real interest in ink and ink making, which I'll be sharing with you as a part of the Daily Nature Journal, with the wonderful help of Louise at Bohemian Raspberry Art, who will be providing recipes for us, and these will be the recipes that I'll be following in my ink making videos that you'll see later on. So that's a little bit about my nature journaling. If you want to see more in this sort of style, you can find this journal on my Patreon, and this is what I share month by month with my patrons. And also you can find my extended outdoor field guide content, so that's the field work that I do outside to support this journal and to support the current content I'm creating for this channel. So you can find all of that on Patreon, which will be linked in the description. So I really hope you enjoyed this look through my nature journals. I'm going to be posting up another video later about my setup for the 2022 Daily Nature Journal project.